But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it.
It is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies infested hen house.
And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last weekend.
Yeah, they have nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement?
Everything blew up into a lawsuit so huge, it didn't just rock The View, it ripped through the entire media world like a shockwave. The blast was felt everywhere. Charlie Kirk had reached his limit and finally snapped. He didn't stay silent. He dropped a massive $100 million lawsuit that threw daytime TV into complete chaos. This wasn't some fake attention stunt or a trendy clip meant for likes. Kirk was finished watching his students get trashed by smug TV hosts who acted like dragging young people was just part of the show. They thought they could throw around nasty comments and walk away untouched. But at Kirk's Turning Point USA Youth Summit, more than 5,000 fired-up students from all over the country gathered, ready to be inspired by bold, fearless, conservative voices.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stop looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side, and if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do, and no one's critically thinking about this.
Joe Rogan is the gateway drug for young men that thought they were Democrats to become MAGA. Joe Rogan is the bridge. And on that bridge, they'll see RFK. They'll see Elon Musk.
These teens weren't criminals or threats. They were just excited young people chasing something powerful. Full of energy, they flew in from all over just to be part of a movement that felt alive, bold, and unstoppable. And how did The View handle it? They didn't cover it fairly. They went straight for the attack. They tossed out reckless accusations, acting like Kirk's Youth Summit was some kind of danger zone. Imagine being just 16, turning on the TV, and hearing that your dream trip made you look like a shady troublemaker, right in front of your shocked classmates. That's when Charlie Kirk shouted, "Enough!" He'd faced critics before, but this wasn't casual teasing. This was a full-on character hit job. They were branding innocent teenagers with harsh labels that could stick with them for life. He made a promise. This cruel takedown wasn't going to slide without consequences. Not on his watch. And the worst part? It took the threat of a massive lawsuit just to make The View even consider saying sorry. No true remorse. No thoughtful pause. Just raw panic as the courtroom loomed closer. Kirk didn't let them spin it. He made it clear they weren't apologizing out of guilt. They were scared of what was coming next. When reporters asked if he'd accept their weak apology, Kirk didn't center the spotlight on himself. "It's not about me," he said. "Do our students accept it?" And with that, everything changed. This wasn't about ego, it was about justice, about young people who deserved better. For far too long, The View had laughed at different opinions. But now, the fake smiles were fading, and the truth about their recklessness was shining through, and Kirk wasn't standing alone. Right behind him was podcast heavyweight Joe Rogan, ready to rip off the mask with fierce honesty. Then, bang, Rogan stormed into the spotlight. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He didn't hold back. He slammed The View for being loud, sloppy, and predictable beyond belief.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis.
Rogan didn't just throw shade at the show, he completely demolished it with words as sharp as a blade. They always bring on one conservative woman just to yell at her, he shouted. And wow, that cut deep. From Meghan McCain to random reality stars, anyone brave enough to speak their mind was either shouted down or mocked into silence. But this wasn't only about pushing back against guests. It was about burying the truth just to stir up drama and boost ratings. Rogan had it. He joined forces with Charlie Kirk, pulling back the shiny curtain on all the fake performances, the clapping, and the camera tricks. Then, Sunny Hostin made a massive mistake. She tried to humiliate Rogan on live TV. With a completely serious face, she said he believed in dragons. Dragons? Yes, she really went there, on national television. That's how far she stretched just to discredit him. But she overlooked something huge. Rogan had the proof. The clip she referred to? It was just a chill, fun talk with a wildlife expert. That's it. But instead of telling the truth, she twisted it into a public takedown, aired live for everyone to see. She even went as far as saying, "We're ABC News, trust us, not Joe Rogan," and clung to the whole dragon story. Rogan's reaction? He laughed. But behind that laugh, he was getting fired up. He clapped back with cold, hard facts. Her wild claim didn't just fail, it revealed something rotten deep inside The View. And Rogan wasn't about to let her off easy. He reminded his massive audience that Sunny Hostin isn't just any host. She's a trained lawyer, a former federal prosecutor. She knows exactly how dangerous false claims can be when said on national TV. But she said them anyway, loud and bold. She should know better, Rogan declared. She knows what defamation means. And just like that, she might have handed Charlie Kirk's legal team a powerful weapon. Suddenly, it became clear. This wasn't some random outburst. This lawsuit had teeth. The View was sinking fast into a legal nightmare. They were already staring down a $100 million lawsuit from one of the loudest conservative leaders, and now the world's biggest podcaster was exposing their every move. This wasn't just a TV spat anymore. This had become a full-blown media battle. One side was backed by millions of supporters, sharp legal minds ready to fight, and one thing the other side couldn't fake: the truth.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
I have no hate for Joy Behar. If I saw her, I'd give her a hug. I'd probably say the same thing about me if I was her. You're worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is fucking great, and Joe Rogan believes in dragons!
Rogan didn't pull any punches, not for even a second. Over and over, he tore into the entire show, calling it exactly what it was: a phony stage act pretending to be real conversation. But the biggest blows weren't the laughs. They were the cold, sharp truths hiding underneath. He laid bare the massive divide between the fading old-school media and the bold, fearless new voices rising fast. He said what millions already believed. The mainstream media no longer calls the shots. Not anymore. He made one thing loud and clear. The View stood for the outdated media machine, loaded with rehearsed scripts, filtered messages, teleprompters, and producers controlling every word. But the future? That belonged to podcasts, independent creators, and raw truth-tellers speaking straight to the people. That's why this moment was so huge. This lawsuit wasn't just about Kirk or Rogan. It had become a symbol, a signal that the old media powers, those who thought they could lie without ever being challenged, were finally being dragged into court, kicking and panicking. Rogan didn't just break down their weak points. He exposed their full-blown hypocrisy. They liked to preach about fairness and truth, but when it came to attacking thousands of teens on live TV, none of that mattered to them. And those teens, they weren't just background noise. They were bright, motivated students who gave up summer fun to attend something meaningful and inspiring. But The View twisted their energy into scandal, turning their hope into shame, all for a few cheap ratings. It was outrageous, and Kirk stood tall. This fight isn't about me. It's for every single one of those 5,000 students. And Rogan stood with him, strong as ever. This is a fight about power, and calling out people who abuse it without a care in the world. They sent the message loud and clear. This battle isn't about silencing anyone. It's about defending truth. When a billion-dollar TV network attacks people on air, there have to be consequences. Otherwise, the microphone turns into a weapon, used to crush, not connect. And this wasn't a quiet mess. It was an explosive firestorm burning across every screen.
But with that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in. You know, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her. And, you know, they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show. I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race. The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings. Yeah. Everybody's just individuals. That's a very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment. Yeah. Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, you know, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured. Right. You know, that's sort of, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, who are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart, but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course.
You know.
They do everything with an agenda.
Every time The View tried to walk back their wild accusations, it backfired. Big time. Their so-called apologies felt cold and robotic. More like they were protecting their brand than actually feeling sorry. The pressure was building fast. Cracks were showing everywhere, and viewers weren't buying it for a second. Those forced smiles, the fake laughs, even their most loyal fans could feel it. Something was off, and not in a small way. Rogan didn't need to yell to make an impact. His power came from saying the truths nobody else dared to say out loud. They made this mess, he snapped, and now they want to act like it never happened? But that lawsuit, the massive $100 million legal bomb, was shouting a truth they desperately wanted to bury. Fear was creeping into that studio, not just because of the lawsuit's huge price tag, but because of what it meant for the future. A new wave was coming, where talk shows would finally face consequences, where hosts couldn't just throw wild claims around and walk away clean. A future where truth grabs the mic back from the hands of spin and spectacle. Rogan wasn't just talking anymore. He was sparking a full-on reckoning. He turned The View's messy smear tactics into a red flag waving in front of everything broken about today's drama-hungry media world. And then he asked the question nobody else had the guts to say. Why do these shows get to make bold accusations without showing any proof? The answer? Nothing. Dead silence. And that silence screamed louder than any words. It exposed all the truths they were running from. Suddenly, Charlie Kirk's lawsuit wasn't just some legal document. It was a wake-up call. A fierce warning to every TV host who thinks being on camera means they can say anything, no matter how damaging, without backing it up. And at the eye of this media hurricane stood Sunny Hostin, a trained lawyer, a former federal prosecutor, someone who absolutely should have known better. But now, she was stuck in the storm she helped create, caught in the backlash from her own reckless live TV ambush.
Not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So, because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, you know, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
And those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, like, the fans, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point, most of those people can't leave the house. Like, they're probably immobile.
Right.
Rogan kept firing warning shots over and over again, not to embarrass her, but to prove just how far the big media machine had drifted from its duty to speak the truth. Your words matter, he insisted, so why pretend like they don't? This wasn't about trending hashtags or temporary social media outrage. This time, the heat was real and coming from a courtroom, a place where every single word must be backed up, where the stakes are high and only the truth makes it out alive. Rogan didn't ease up. He ripped through the show's carefully crafted image and laid it bare for everyone to see. This is their game, he shouted. They wrap opinions in shiny wrapping paper, toss out accusations like candy, and hope all the glitter hides the mess they leave behind. But people weren't fooled anymore. They were wide awake. Charlie Kirk's lawsuit didn't just hit the headlines, it broke through the wall, and that wall might never be rebuilt. If Kirk wins, this lawsuit becomes a landmark moment, a loud, clear message that defamation isn't protected speech, that throwing people under the bus on live TV comes with a heavy, lasting price. Suddenly, newsrooms everywhere went silent. The air got thick with fear, because if The View crumbles, then everything changes. A new standard will rise, where every sentence said on air could carry legal weight, and one misstep could summon a subpoena right to the anchor's desk. For the first time in ages, legacy media didn't shake over a political scandal or a dip in viewership. They trembled at the sound of thousands of young voices shouting, "We've had enough." They were done swallowing false narratives, done letting lazy labels stick to their names. They burst through the silence with a roar that thundered across every platform. That's what made Rogan's takedown so explosive. It wasn't just jokes. It was a jolt of lightning. It snapped people out of their media fog. He made them care again. He didn't just call out Sunny Hostin. He turned her into a cautionary tale. Once respected as a sharp legal mind, now caught up in the very scandal she helped ignite. All because she forgot the one rule that matters most. Microphones don't just make you louder. They make you accountable to the entire world every single time you speak. And The View, their polished image, their carefully choreographed chaos, their echoing applause, it all began to shatter. Because truth doesn't disappear. It grows louder, pounding through every attempt to cover it up. And just to make it sting even more, even their longtime fans started raising eyebrows and asking, what's really going on here?
This is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest fucking statement. Like, you didn't listen to what I said. Yeah. You didn't listen to what the wildlife biologist, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't believe
the other part of what he said was there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with giant reptiles. And then there's also, listen,
it doesn't make sense to me that a middle-aged woman could be dumb.
When you're worried about losing your job and you're worried about podcasts taking over and who's the source of...
Why were they so fast to point fingers? Why unleash their outrage on young, driven teens? Why mock instead of simply asking real questions? And why did any hint of regret only show up after lawyers in crisp suits entered the picture? Rogan didn't need stage lights, a teleprompter, or a polished PR team. He only needed a mic and the courage to slice through the noise. Every word he spoke tore apart the carefully crafted illusion The View had spent years selling to their daytime crowd. In the end, this firestorm wasn't just about Rogan, Kirk, or Hostin. It cracked open something much bigger. It exposed a broken media machine, tangled in its own false stories, a system that believed it could tear people down anytime it wanted and stroll away untouched. But not this time. This time, the target pushed back hard. The truth didn't sneak in quietly. It exploded, louder than all the forced applause and carefully edited segments combined. And that massive $100 million lawsuit? It stopped being just a shocking number. It became a rally cry, a powerful demand for justice, for every teen they tried to embarrass on national television. As the legal documents keep piling up, one thing is absolutely clear. Daytime TV will never look the same again. The View, once a show known for casual talk and morning chatter, now stands as the bruised symbol of a media war it never saw coming. And Joe Rogan? He didn't just rewrite the rules, he set the whole script on fire, then handed them the ashes with a grin that said it all. Because when real truth crashes headfirst into inflated egos, truth always wins. And this time, it didn't just win. It roared for everyone watching.